To relieve many Nigerians in respect to the current economic situation, the Dangote Petroleum Refinery has announced a reduction in the price of the premium motor spirit, also known as petrol, to 899.50 naira per litre. Try to offer relief to Nigerians this festive season. This is also an initiative that aims to provide added financial flexibility to consumers, particularly during this high spending holiday period. This information comes as the Anthony Chijina, the spokesman to the Dangote Refinery, revealing a special purchase offer to accompany the price slash. He explained that this is to ease transportation costs this holiday season. Dangote Refinery is reducing the price from the 800 to 899.50 naira per litre at the truck loading quantity or the SME. Additionally, for every litre purchased with the cash, and the consumer can buy an extra litre on credit. This is coming from Dangote Refinery. This slash means that, but the question many Nigerians are also paying attention to how much will be sold at the different stations. Those are retailing down to the grassroots and to Nigerian people. This is really the questions on the lips of many Nigerians. But we give kudos to Dangote Refinery for this move. It's in a way of relieving Nigerians in respect to the festive season. And on to Edo State, the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice, Prince Lateef Fayomi, has declared that the suspension of the local government area chairman and the vice chairman in Edo State as unconstitutional and illegal. He was speaking in Abuja today. He emphasized that such actions violate the autonomy granted to local government areas by the Supreme Court's July 11, 2024 judgment. And now the controversy arose after the Edo State Assembly suspended the council leaders from all the 18 local government areas for 2 months, citing alleged gross misconduct and insubordination. Governor Monday Pebble followed up with a directive for the council leaders to hand over to their respective legislative leaders, accusing them of failing to submit financial reports dating back to September 23, 2022. Now the AGF is condemning the suspension and highlighting that it's only the local government legislative houses that holds the authority to discipline their local government chairman and vice chairman respectively. This is the word of the AGF. One thing that I know and can say without fear is that under the present dispensation, the governor has no right to remove any local government chairman. This is coming from the AGF Fayomi, who's stating clearly and reiterating his stance that his stance is also rooted in the Supreme Court ruling that affirmed the autonomy of the 774 local government areas across Nigeria. There have been a lot of debates, and this judgment is restricting governors from interfering with the affairs of local government elected chairman and other officials. And it has continued to draw a lot of concern where the House of Assembly were in a rush. There are those that are arguing that they were too much in a haste to suspend this local government chairman. Do they have the power, or do the governor has the power to interfere in the business of the local government in respect to the judgment, the financial autonomy judgment that was given to the local government? But all of that, AGF has also given its stance, and it looks that it may put to rest the concern, the agitation, and the pressure already that is fueling the crisis within the local government areas in Edo State. That is a few development coming from local and grassroots development politics. And tonight, everyone, on Big Talk tonight, we'll be looking at the 2025 budget that have been submitted by the president. The president's budget looks that those that are really saying that it is impossible to reduce the inflation to the 15% next year. When we look at the crude oil production, is below the 2 million barrels per day. We've not yet met up with that aspiration. Now, if the projections are realistic or not, but the most important thing is that Nigerians are trying to understand what are the assumptions driving those projections. If you say that you will want to have 15% headline inflation, just as the president said yesterday, the core drivers, we should be able to show that we are going to be realistically drop down those drivers and reduce the efficacy and the frequency. These are the argument of some Nigerians in respect to the budget. But it looks, unfortunately, if it's possible to reduce the 15% from the current 34% inflation that we have, that those that feels that is a big dream and aspiration. But the president had really made some commitment to what he had really said yesterday by assuring Nigerians of better days ahead. Some of the economic reforms that have been introduced by this government have already started yielding some positive results. The president is really reiterating and saying that there have been notable signs of improved security in the area of education, in the area of health care, as well as the 3.4 to 6% GDP growth in the third quarter of this year. And then these reforms have been instituted, are beginning to yield results, and Nigerians will soon experience a better and more functional economy. These are the words of Mr. President yesterday while he was presenting that budget to the joint session of the National Assembly, trying to underscore and restore back confidence of Nigerians, because the budget is already tagged a budget of restoration. If, of course, there are also questions and concerns, what are we trying to restore? What have we had already? Where do we miss it? How are we going to restore them, and how are we going to fix back the economy? These are the questions and concerns of many Nigerians. And of course, tonight on the program, I'll be joined by Senior Special Assistant to the President on Digital and Communications, who of course will be joining us tonight to make us understand better the aspiration of Mr. President, the concern of the president, and how would the president be able to tackle all of these in the long run of getting Nigeria to 2025. Do stay with us on the program, everyone. Once we return from the break, the big talk continues. Stay with us. Many thanks everyone for staying with us. This is Big Talk here on Global Television. A lot of concern about the prediction of the country, significant progress under President Tinubu. The 2025 budget, proposed budget, was submitted yesterday at the joint session by the president. Those are really having a concern about where are we going to? Where all of these reforms that have been taken by this administration taking Nigerians to? But the president said one thing, that better days and better times are coming for 2025. In a way, there are still a lot of questions in the lips of many Nigerians, and of course tonight We'll try as much as possible to make some meanings surrounding all of the factors, all of the indicators and the prediction, even the aspiration that this budget may be looking so much ambiguous, because 49.7 trillion naira budget, it looks ambiguous. Does Nigeria even have all it takes to be able to fund that budget? Is still a major question and concern to many Nigeria. But tonight, I've been joined by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Strategy and Communication, Otega Ograi, is live here on the show tonight. Thanks so much for joining us on the program.
Good evening, and thank you for having me here.
Yes, a lot, but let's begin with the name. We've had many government give names to budget. We've seen budget of change and all of those names that have been given about the previous government. But Mr. President, this time he said budget of restoration. Now, those that may say, what are we trying to restore? So let's begin with that.
When you were giving your opening, you said something. You said it might be ambiguous. I would say very ambitious. And like the president said in his speech, this budget that he proposed to the National House of Assembly yesterday strikes at the very core of its renewed hope agenda. And beyond it being about the renewed hope agenda, it's us saying, see, for the past 18 months of being in office, this is what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done. We've put in the foundations in place, and now we're about to take Nigeria where it ought to be. And where we ought to be. For us to do that, we need to, security is very, very key. You cannot build on a less than secure, environment. You have to rebuild prosperity and give people hope. People already have hope. People can see the results of the work that he's already doing. So what we're looking at now is building upon the progress of the last 18 months, enhancing institutions, ensuring that the civil service can meet up with the demands of the vision that the president has, and giving Nigerians something that they can aspire to, a country where every single Nigerian can say, I am Nigerian, I belong to this country, and we need to renew that hope through these budgets.
All right, because the main concern, when you look at the fact that some of these reforms that have been taken by the government, looks at it has posted hardship to the population. Many Nigerians are saying we are hungry and all of this. Is the president aware of all of this? Because there are those that feel that he looks at the president is disconnected from the reality on ground.
I would just say someone is disconnected. Someone who has, on countless occasions, come out himself to say, I feel your pains, I hear your complaints, but at the same time, I am appealing to you to give us some time, to put things in order. And why is that so? We've had 63 years before Mr. President came in, to put a lot of things in order that were not done. Yes, there was some progress in some areas, but more often than not, we applied short-term solutions to long-term problems, and that left an existential issue for the Nigerian states. What President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done so far in the past 18 months has been to retool the way government works for the people. We are looking at the people as a whole. What can we do for them? How can we ensure that whatever things we do today can be sustainable in the long term? How can we guarantee the future, of our yet to be unborn kids? But in the interim, a lot of things have to be done. We are not going to put, a bandage on a festering sore without treating the core issues affecting this country as a whole in different areas. So we've started our process of rebuilding. The president has said, give him that time. The buck stops on his table, and he acknowledges that. But at the same time, we've got to do what we have to do to ensure that the Nigerian state can stand, is stable, and has financial freedom and is prosperous for the long term.
So would you say that all of these reforms that have been taken by the government will have a better days? Because many Nigerians have heard promises upon promises by previous government, and of course, government have always been communicating those promises. Even campaigns, you often hear good visions and commentaries about what they would do in all of that. But Nigerians hope have been been betrayed, and sometimes they cannot lightly see what the president is doing for over 18 months. They are likely saying that for 18 months, things have gotten worse. Their life, their purchasing power is not what the same compared to the previous time. Can we go back to even those old times? These are still on the lips of many Nigerians. Is the president bothered about all of that?
The president will continue to look towards the future of Nigeria, which is a Nigeria that is great and prosperous and, retains the pride, or takes its pride of place in the Committee of Nations. Yes, a lot of people have come, a lot of leaders in the past across the nations, subnationals or whatever have come and have given promises, have never kept to it. But if there's one thing about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, it is that he's a talk and do person. to use the local parlance. It says what it would do and it does what it says. Go back to his campaign document, the renewed up document. Go and read every single page of this and you'll see that he has hardly deviated from his campaign promises, because this is someone that came to this job prepared from day one. He knew what the issues were. He had his he had his team of experts, professionals across different spaces, work on the 8 key points of that renewed up agenda and come up with, detailed steps. We're only just, now that we're in office, we're only just seeing those places that need to be retooled. But also, the president is not stuck in his ways. Wherever he sees that we need to make, changes or make a correction here and there, he listens to, proper advice. He looks at it because he has a whole, a holistic view of everything. And then he decides to make those changes. And we've seen it happen with things like, the student loan. It went back to the National Assembly the first time. It came back, before it even came back, the president recalled it back so that we could make amendments to it to ensure that more students in tertiary institutions were covered. That is the kind of president we have. He says what he will do and he does what we say. He's a talk and do president.
All right. Would you really, how would you assess the implementation of 2024 budget before we can even discuss that of 2025?
So the 2024 budget, so far so good. I think we are seeing the gains from that budget already. Initially, there are a lot of people that said budget implementation was slow. That could be understandable, be it being a new government, still trying to learn ropes and everything. But in a little bit of time, things caught up. You could start to see, the impact of that budget. There are still some areas where we believe that a lot more could still be done. And the National Assembly did something yesterday. I don't know if you listened to the president's budget speech. And they said we're going to extend the life of the 2024 budgets to June 2025, to give, some more time for everything in that budget to be properly implemented. We'll wait and see what will come of that. But I think so far so good. Nigeria is on the right path. You can already see that in the positive economic headwinds that we're experiencing now. You can also see that in, for instance, we just did a Eurobond. We went to the market for a certain amount, and in less than 3 hours, we already had about 9 billion on our books. This is without any roadshow happening by the Ministry of Finance or those, that were tasked with the responsibility of bringing that that Eurobond, to bear. And what does that mean? It simply means that the world is watching. The world has seen the work that Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing, and the world knows, whether it's, your portfolio investors, the international institutions will give funds to countries, they know that there's something Nigeria is doing positively, and they are willing to bet on this country. So if foreigners can bet on Nigeria, why not Nigerians?
Right. How would you, the aspiration of over 49.7 trillion budget really is an ambition. Those that are really having a concern, how would you begin to fund and finance this budget?
So the budget is going to be financed from a couple of places. From, the expanded tax nets, and I would use this opportunity to speak a little bit about, the tax reforms. That is the biggest tax cuts for individuals, for small businesses, and the first time in Nigeria we have an equitable tax system, if passed. It's a kind of reform that is unheard of this part of the world.
You feel that would address issues of tax, because there are those that feel that there are elites that do not pay taxes, that there are more businesses and small businesses are the one paying taxes and financing the tax system.
But now there are lots of tax breaks for small businesses. There are a lot of tax breaks for individuals. People earning below $1 million, below 1.2 million, and so they don't get to pay personal income tax. Small businesses are getting a lot of waivers. We are also reducing the number of taxes, whether they're state taxes, local government taxes, federal taxes, from about 60 to about 12. That means something, multiplicity of taxes, duplicity of taxes, and all those things, which has burdened the 60 to 70% of our country, who are young people, many being entrepreneurs, many being individuals, employees at the early stages of their, or mid stages of their careers. They get these tax breaks. So, we are expanding the tax net because Nigeria still has one of the lowest tax to GDP ratios in the whole of Africa, talk less of the world. Lagos even has a larger tax to GDP ratio than the whole of Nigeria. So if we can bring more people into the tax nets, as my president famously said a couple of years ago in his colloquium, rather than increasing taxes on people and burdening those who are paying taxes currently, expand the tax nets, let more people pay their taxes, and then hold your government accountable and responsible for delivering good governance to you for the taxes that you have paid. We are ready to take account. We are ready to give account of your taxes when you call upon us to do that. And if you listen to the president's speech, for instance, in the speech, he said something about, building the capacity of the civil service to be able to support the government in carrying out his mandates. Many a times you have a situation where the civil service itself, was way ahead of the political side. This is probably the first time in a very long time in Nigeria where you have the political side, but having not just the political will, but also the capacity to execute and think of ideas that can move this country forward. So now is the civil service playing catch up. But we're seeing a lot of progress there. You see, you've seen things like digitization. Digitization has improved, tax rates. It's improved tax collections, for the Nigerian, for FIRS. You've seen things like, so far so good within Nigeria. You've seen the Ministry of Finance, meeting up with their with things that they're supposed to do for Nigerians in terms of waivers that Mr. President has approved. For instance, LPG, CNG equipment today, the customs released, a policy on that, zero on that, just so that they could push Mr. President's gas initiative for Nigerians. So we are seeing a lot of arms of governments standing up to what they ought to do, being responsible for the work that they've been given to do. And we're seeing that action moving up. We want to see more of that. We want to see more collaboration. We want to see more capacity. We want to see more transparency in our dealings. BPP, for instance, is the Bureau of Public Procurement. They are taking a bigger role in ensuring that things go through the proper procurement channels. So that, it's not just the same group of people that get all government contracts and then you have issues with the execution of contracts. So everything, it's an end-to-end all of government approach that the 2025 budget is bringing to the table.
Because the issue of tax reform, there's a lot of critics, and it looks like the Senate President said that those that are criticizing are not even aware of more content, and that, the context or the content of the bill as well. But that those that are judging, it looks at that criticism that was coming from the North was issues of derivation and issues of VAT as well, consideration. They feel that their region will be deprived in the long run of trying to reform these taxes.
So one thing I know, and this is one of the first questions I asked Mr. Taiwo Idile 2 months ago, just before the thing went to the National Assembly. And I said, sir, based on your modeling, is there any Nigerian states that would get lower than it currently gets from FAC? And the answer was no. I have looked at the data, I've looked at their data, I've looked at independent third-party data, I've looked at analysis from different people. And that is not going to happen. In fact, the federal government in itself is taking some percentage of its own allocations under the new proposed laws to, as an equalization fund to ensure that any state that seems that may get lower in the first instance, they're compensated from that fund. So I think it's almost a no-brainer. But every single Nigerian gets some form of tax cuts, the burden on Nigerians' necks. We acknowledge it has been too much for a long time. We cannot keep unburdening or burdening the Nigerian people with the heavy, the heavy load that is tax.
Infrastructure is about, the projection of this budget is that 4.6 trillion naira is going towards our infrastructure, and those are having a concern. We'll finance our infrastructure for many years in this country, and it looks like we are still having that conversation. Our infrastructure is not strong enough to support local business, to support entrepreneurship, to support production, because it looks like if we produce, we can reduce the pressure on importation, and by that we can also Naira can begin to gain some strength. National Assembly was saying the other time that it looks like the use of dollars in Nigeria is very alarming, and this is why our own Naira is getting weaker day by day and all of that. And Mr. President is saying that I'm targeting 1,500 to $1 next year, and that is to beat down the 1,700 we're having today. So all of these aspirations gets me to the point that we must fix our infrastructure. Are you impressed about the state of our infrastructure, and one way will the president enhance our infrastructure with over the 4.6 trillion naira? So
let me correct you there. Including education, including transportation, energy, social works, infrastructure should go to about 20 trillion. That's 16 trillion for those other three, including housing. So the most important thing for us to note is that As we speak, Nigeria has a trade surplus. We export more than we import. Today, as we speak, of about $5.8 billion or so. I'll get the correct figures. But Nigeria has a trade surplus. And when I say we are seeing progress, it's little things like this that gives us the confidence to go on, regardless of what political opponents say. And that is what's the most important to us as a government, is seeing the Nigerian people, the average Nigerian, knowing that he can go to his farm, sell his products to an aggregator, not have to worry about, bad roads and his goods spoiling on the roads from farm to whether storage or to an aggregator. Knowing that they can export to the greater West African region under AFCFTA and other things, or even to the rest of the world, and make some money from their little home anywhere in Nigeria. Those are the kind of stories that give us as a government, some form of confidence to know that our reforms are working. You also spoke about what the Senate President said. They are the Senate. They will decide. They are representatives of the people. At the end of the day, the National Assembly are accountable to the Nigerian people because they are voted by special electorates into that place. So, they will look at the budgets. I'm sure that, we've been very, very detailed. The President, like you said, if you look at the title of the budgets, security is key, and we have to build prosperity. How do you build prosperity without infrastructure? The Renewed Hope Infrastructure Development Fund is there. The Renewed Hope Housing, Homes and Estates are there. You're looking at the Lagos-Calabar Highway. You're looking at the Badagry-Sokoto Highway. Those two highways are not just roads per se. They are transforming those corridors into high-tech, ultra-modern infrastructure hubs. The Sokoto-Badagry Highway is it's going to be the major agricultural hub in the whole of West Africa. And why do I say so? It simply means that from Badagry, Lagos, or from Sokoto in Sokoto State to Badagry, Lagos, every agricultural community along that route, passing through various rivers, including the River Niger and the banks of the River Niger, the dams, the villages, everything, all connected, not just to that road, also through the ramp, the agricultural roads that they're building, taking this, connected to special agro-processing zones across the country. Everything comes together to ensure that farm to market takes less time. Farm to ports takes less time. We can build our strategic reserves for things like grains, and a lot of issues that have bedeviled the agricultural sector over the past few years. Those bottlenecks will be cut gradually with the completion of those sort of projects. But also, I want you to remember that Mr. President has said he inherited the liabilities and the assets of the past. Government is a continuum.
So we can't push blame to the past.
We are not looking to the past. We are not looking to the past. We do not have the time to look to the past. The most important thing is that the good in the past, we have continued to build on them. We're in Abuja today. You drive around Abuja, a lot of roads that are being constructed, in addition to new ones, are roads that we have decided that regardless of whether they have been left for the past 15, 20 years or the past 4, 5 years, we are going to complete them. And at the same time, we're doing new roads. And you're seeing that across Nigeria, across a lot of things. For us, it's not about sitting down in the past. It's saying, this is what we have on ground. How can we make it better? At the same time, without putting unnecessary burden on Nigerians in terms of foreign debts and whatsoever. We've been successful in reducing our debt service ratio from 98%, now to about 68%. If in the current budget, we're looking to bring it down to about 48, 49%. Why do we want to do that? We do not want to keep unburdening Nigerians today or tomorrow with international debts, whether local or international. So we're going to find ways, using what we have, to get what we want.
So would it be able to reduce the inflation to 15% because Mr. President is having a 15% target for next year?
Barring any force majeure or unforeseen circumstances, I think we should be able to do that. Look at your farms. Unlike the past 2 years, actually, you are seeing a lot of them looking forward to bumper harvest this year. Weather has been good. We have improved our provision of seedlings, agricultural extension services, providing mechanization to them. More are coming. We're expecting to see more deliveries of things like tractors, mechanized farming equipment. We're looking at a committee, another committee has been set up to look at our dams, our irrigation systems, for farming communities and the rest. These are not a flash in the pan. It's not something that you do in one day. But because we've started when we started, I expect that a lot of the fruits and the bountiful harvests will be reaped, from next year going forward, because a lot of the inflation that we have today is tied to food inflation, and which in some cases, some say might have been tied to, the fuel subsidy removal. But even that is already coming down. At the complete removal of fuel subsidy on October 1st, 2024, after it was removed by Mr. President, NNPC, I think they still were subsidizing on their books. But they removed it October 1st, 2024. The average price of fuel has gone from about 1,004 to 1,008 in places like Maiduguri to, about 1,000 to 1,080 today, all in the space of 3 months. That is progress, and we expect this to also permeate to other sectors of the economy.
We saw that when the president took on this, some of these policies, he had went ahead to roll out palliatives to state government so that they can also cushion the effect at the grassroots, to the point of giving judgment to the local government so as to help in seeing how they can tackle some of these problems. There have been an increase of allocation to states, but are those that are really feeling that, can we continue to invest or allocate more to the state and then depriving the local government? Because even up to now, six months after, we're yet to fully witness direct allocation from the federation account to the local government. Are you bothered about the state of the local government today?
Can you prove that the local governments do not receive direct allocations to them today?
Many local governments are saying that they have not. We cannot even measure. If you can also give us information
because about, I don't have that data, but I know that's one thing Mr. President has always done. Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for emphasis, believes in the rule of law, and he will follow the rule of law to the letter. When people had issues with local government financial autonomy and everything, and they took the federal government, the thing went to the Supreme Court. A decision was made, and the government decided there and then to, follow that. And I know a lot of local governments, including places where I have some of my peers who are friends who are leading local governments, who are getting the allocations. So if there's any local governments who, is duly properly elected as per the law, as per the letters of the law, I don't think they would be there not receiving that. But if you want me to find out, I could.
So would you assess, because the pressure is really on the center as we speak, and that those that feel that if we're having some increase of allocation to states, there ought to also be more effort coming from the state. How do you assess the effort by the state government in respect to all of this? Because if we are putting our eyes on the president said, this is doing, I've done this, I've invested on this, no more, nothing is really left on the center to pay attention to. I've increased allocation to the state government, and many are still saying hunger is still real. Some states are not really prioritizing agriculture in respect to farming and all of those things. But what should be the way forward in out of this? Because the continuous dependent or concentration on the one side of government is where we are today. Because if we must begin to tackle a problem, there must be regional development. They should enhance other aspects that development can come from all angles.
I totally agree with you, and I hear you very well. But the federation allocates money to the different arms of governments: the federal government, the state government, and the local councils. Not the federal government doesn't allocate money to the states. It's the federation, comprising all these three units. But that being said, I think everyone needs to do more at all levels of governance. I'm a student of international development and public health. I think the time has come for Nigerians to begin to also exercise their civic, obligations in requesting for good governance from their leaders. But you must also be open to seeing when people are being transparent and people are being accountable to you. You understand? To be able to ask, there's something that's an older friend tells me, to be able to seek good governance, you must know the law, you must know what to ask, you must know who to ask, you must know where to ask. That helps you to understand what government does, the way government works, and demand accountability from your leaders. Mr. President has tried as much as possible to bring states together, to work with them in ensuring that we can deliver governance to the people as much as possible. But we see some encouraging states already. I think more states can also join the bandwagon, and Nigerians will be better off for it.
Otega, you've seen health been projected to receive 2.48 trillion naira.
Sorry?
2.48 trillion naira for health.
For health.
That is a projection for the 2025 budget. But if we go back to the grassroots, it looks at medicine is now a goods of just the elite. So many families are finding it very difficult, to purchase some basic drugs and all of that. You understand better that if the Nigerian people are not healthy, we must also look at the effect of it. People will not be stronger to also contribute to our economy in respect to the manpower enhancement and all of that. Are you worried about this rapid increase and the state of our health infrastructure? Some doctors are leaving the country, leaving the primary health care centers vacant without doctors. It's still a crisis and a problem to us. Health.
So the beautiful thing about health is one of the few areas I'm pretty confident in what this government is going to deliver and what it's already delivering. Under the coordinating minister for health, Dr. Pate. Under health, for instance, today, as we speak, about 10 million Nigerians, use our public health centers, and there's a program currently, to ensure that they are renovated, revamped, rebuilt, and in instances where they are not sufficient, add some more. We are seeing progress in that, aspect already. And you're not only seeing progress at the primary healthcare level, you're seeing progress even in policy for healthcare. Let me give you an instance. I agree with you that some basic drugs have increased in price. But what do we as a government...
What is the cause? Is it because of inflation?
What's our responsibility as a government? Our responsibility is to ensure that we create the enabling environments for those drugs to be able to be produced there. So today, for some basic drugs, we've given tax breaks, we've given waivers, duties and waivers on importation of medical equipment and certain medicines into this country. That is a thinking government. That is a government that sees a problem and tackles it head on. So we are not just stopping there at saying, okay, we are creating these policies, putting these policies in place. We are also ensuring that our institutions of learning, are properly tooled to train our doctors better. And we're ensuring that, even doctors, once upon a time, you would hear strikes from doctors and all, almost every week, almost every month. Gradually, we are seeing a decrease in that. That is a listening government. We know that these problems exist. We are not going to shy away from them, but we're going to tackle them heads on. And that's what, the health minister is doing. And I think I'm pretty confident in what they will come up with.
All right, let's briefly look at the issue of education. Over 3.5 trillion have been projected for education. And the state of education, those are really having a concern about the curriculum, the reformation, the state of schools and all of that. Yes, kudos for student loan by Visa 2024, but still the state of education is not ordinary where we ought to be, owing to a lot of investment we've invested towards that sector. You're also in the digital strategy to the president. Those that feel that we are not doing well to also tap him into the area of technology in respect to our schools, curriculum and all of that. How do you feel these would enhance the state of education if we must have that fully implemented?
So I'll start from the last part. You see, digital skills, digital services are useless if there's no digital access. You understand? If people don't have fiber to their homes, if people don't have access to the internet, for instance, if people don't have basic hardware to do their work, then your skills are useless, basically. So what are we doing? You have the Ministry of ICT, already trying to ensure that all 774 local governments in this country are connected, to some form of network, whether fiber or otherwise. And that project is ongoing, hopefully to be completed soon. We're ensuring that we have, hubs built across the geopolitical zones, across the regions, to ensure that Nigerians have somewhere at least that they can go and do certain things. So even if you lack it in your schools or your homes or anywhere or your communities, you can always have somewhere where you can go and do your work. On the education side, education is very, very key to Mr. President. He doesn't joke with education. You've seen what he did in Lagos. I am a product of some of the investments of Mr. President in education in Lagos. I went to Lagos State Model College, Cancun, for my secondary school, and I recall, paying 3,500 naira for my school fees per year. And in addition to that, I still got my WAEC and NECO paid free of charge. So I am working with a principal that knows the importance of education to the people. And then you look at the universities, for instance, and your tertiary institutions. Once upon a time in this country, universities and tertiary institutions used to remit revenue to the government. But we've put a stop to that. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has put a stop to that. Today they retain all their revenue so that they can use it to further develop their universities or their tertiary institutions. We need to see more things like that going on. You're talking about capacity development, both for the teachers and all. There are efforts in place to look at, retooling the curriculum, the Nigerian curriculum. We have a new Minister of Education. We expect to see more verve, especially the person is having someone who has worked with the president before. We're expecting to see, a lot more in terms of fast tracking, growth and development in our tertiary institutions. Infrastructure wise, also, both in terms of electricity access. A couple of schools are already getting grants to put in alternative power sources that can power their schools. Some are already coming up on stream. I saw the pictures of one recently. It was a site to behold, a huge solar farm that will power the place, because students cannot learn if the environment is not conducive. We need to see students having better hostels. We need to see students having, lights, electricity 24/7 so that they can go to libraries and read. We need to see them having libraries either digitized or, properly stocked, because the environment, the school is where shapes you. Especially tertiary institutions are where shapes you as a human. But even putting the tertiary education aside, let's look at basic, universal basic education. It's something that's, it's critical to Mr. President's heart. And I repeat, go back and read the Renewed Hope agenda. Every touch point, the master plan is detailed there. And we will continue to follow that plan, including the one as, retooled when we came into office, until Nigerians get a country that they can, like I said earlier, call their own.
All right. Very lastly, before we wrap up, issues of cutting cost of governance is still a major concern to Nigerians. Mr. President had tried to make a move for a recent report, but it looks that it has not really been fully considered. We're having the highest cabinet so in the Federation, Federal Executive Council, and all of that. What has been the message of Mr. President when Nigerians are feeling that there is an increase of expenses in the terms of running the executive and even running the legislative compared to the business of the Nigerian people?
When you talk of the cost of running, I'm sure you mean salaries and co. But I know, I still checked the Ramfax site recently, and the salaries of those in the executive have not increased.
The increase of numbers of
it has not increased at least since 2003 or so. It was 2007. It's the same that has been there since then. So if you're in government then, as an appointee of government, or as an elected representative of government at the federal level, you'll be earning the same thing today as you're earning almost 20 years ago.
SUV cars and all of that.
So again, I am not going to speak about the National Assembly here. I work under the executive arm of the government. I work under the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The National Assembly is the People's Assembly. You and people in your community put either your representative or your senator there, and to also be fair to them, I'm not saying that there are no gaps or there are no places that we can improve on efficiency, which we're already doing, for instance, with the digitization process for approvals and things like that, and expenditure, and strengthening the procurement system. But even in terms of the National Assembly, some people say that the money that a lot of Nigerians complain about are actually, funds that are called earmarks in some countries. For instance, what you call constituency allowances. But again, I repeat, I would let the people ask the National Assembly what.
But do you feel this government have reduced expenses?
I think we've become more efficient as a government. Efficiency is key. Reducing the cost of government or governance does not mean cutting down the number of people or the number of things you do simply to make you inefficient. If you have to add 1 or 2 more people to make you efficient as a government, it might increase costs slightly today, but in the short to medium term, the benefits are there for the government as a whole. So that is the right thinking that we should bring. We should bring an efficiency thinking to the table, and not one where we're just saying, oh, cut everybody's legs simply because we want to reduce the cost of governance.
All right. Lastly, how do you assess the capacity of the president to getting these things done? Because The ambition is quite big. The aspiration of the president, and the time he came in to get this job is a time where we look that yes, Nigeria's economy was already falling, and it needed someone who has all it takes to drive Nigeria's economy to where we ought to be. He has taken some of these bold steps by removing subsidy, even floating a naira, and all of these reforms. There are those that are still wondering, can we continue to have hope on this capacity of the president to get this job done? Very lastly.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the right man for the job. Of everyone that I know who declared the intent to run for the presidency in the 2023 elections, or who ran for the presidency in the 2023 elections, no one of the entire was most prepared, or was as prepared as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to fix this country. And you can see it in the way we've been methodical in putting things in place. We have been extremely methodical in ensuring that we are doing everything that we ought to do to retool this country, to rebuild this country, and to put us in the true path of prosperity, sustainable prosperity as a nation. So I trust my president, I trust my principal to continue on this path, and I trust his capacity to deliver.
Mr. Tega is a Senior Special Assistant, Digital Strategy and Communication to President Tinubu. Thanks so much for joining us on Big Talk and giving us more insight. We'll continue to track and see what the indicators take us to.
Because I don't hold us to account.
Because all of those figures should, translate to impacting Nigerians' lives.
It must translate.
That is really the target, because if the president has said that the economic reforms and all of that are the things that will get to work and better the lives of the people, and great reason why we had to have this conversation tonight. Thanks so much for joining us on the show. We do hope to have you again.
I had a wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tega. Hello, everyone. Of course, it looks that the economic reforms of the president requires patience and resilience and tolerance of Nigerians in supporting the process. That is what the president had appealed to Nigerians just yesterday as he presented the 2025 proposed budget to the joint session of the National Assembly. Can we continue to also look at the dimensions of doing the same thing over and over again? Mr. President has insisted on going towards this direction to getting Nigerians to track. Can we begin to see the result and the gains of all of these reforms? These are what I understand, are still putting your eyes on and fixed on the government to deliver. That's the much we'll take tonight on Big Talk. I will continue to track some of these developments and brings you more highlight on the reforms and policies and considerations of government in getting things working. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Odika Michael. See you again.